The NFL draft is less than 10 days away, and if you're like us, you're almost exhausted with seeing mock drafts, especially ones picking the exact same player. The Falcons are mocked Dallas Turner, it seems like, in every mock draft or some form of position of need, and as we've said, it's not going to be like that, and Terry Fontenot has reiterated, and Raheem Morris has reiterated, it's not going to be like that, but for some reason, they keep going with the defensive prospect. We'll see if that's what it is, but I'm not quite there, and I'm tired of seeing it, frankly, but I'm tired of seeing all mock drafts. Let's just get there and do it. But Alex K over at Bleacher Report did bring up a different topic that's kind of interesting to discuss, and it's the trade back scenario, which we've talked about a couple of times. And it does feel like if there's ever a draft where the Falcons could trade back, it's this one, because frankly, they do have needs on the defensive side of the ball, and there may not be a defensive player worth taking 8th overall. If that's the case and you want to go defense and you have multiple guys kind of ranked closely, move back in the draft, accumulate picks. There's also a lot of teams behind them that need quarterbacks, offensive tackles, and wide receivers. What does this draft have? Quarterbacks, offensive tackles, and wide receivers. So there could be a bidding war. And this trade, this is a big trade. It's with the Dallas Cowboys, who had the 24th pick in the draft. So the Falcons will be going 8 to 24. Obviously, that is going to hinder their chances of landing a game-changing pick, which is probably what this Falcons, particularly on defense, need in the first round. But they get an extra second rounder, and they get a 2025 first rounder. What do you think about that, Alex?
I like it. I know some Falcons fans probably won't like it because you mentioned it. You know, it's quite obvious. You move that far back, you're taking yourself out of position for that, blue chip caliber prospect. But the way I see it, and this is all subjective. I don't know anything more than you. That I just think any defender really at the 8th pick seems like a reach. I mean, it feels like it's going to be Malik Neighbors, Rome Odunze, Joe Alt, or Fashanu right there. And if you're the Falcons, I guess you could say those are luxury picks when you've got, a big hole at cornerback and a bigger hole at edge rusher. So what do you do there? And I think, Terry Fontenot has been telling you what they're going to do. It's not going to be reaching to fill a positional need. That's not to say they won't, after the draft, fill that positional need. But for the draft, they've had one approach. They've stuck to it. And honestly, maybe to a fault, like Kyle Pitts, highest drafted tight end in NFL history. Some people have a problem with that. Circumstances matter with his struggles. Bijan Robinson, we'll see how that pick plays out. But to a fault, Terry Fontenot is sticking to his guns. So if you're going to do that, I don't see the harm in moving back to the 24th pick, because it's not necessarily about, I think that second round pick, yes, it is extremely valuable. Any top 100 pick, which is generally speaking the first 3 rounds, is extremely valuable. You can find day one starters in the first 100 picks. That's kind of the rule of thumb. But it's more about the first round pick next year and how valuable that could be. And if you're so worried about missing out on your guy, whether it's Dallas Turner, Jared Verse, Latu, Quinyon Mitchell, anybody that you yourself are interested in, if you're the Falcons, you can move up from 24 to say 15 for less than what you got from the Cowboys. So you could see it as a net positive. So I don't hate the idea of it. If we're just talking about getting the best prospect, period, you stick at 8. And how I see it, you take Rome Odunze or Malik Neighbors and move on, and you go and try and find pass rushers on the free agent market. That's what I would do.
Yeah, I mean, the Falcons are in this kind of limbo situation, and they've been in this for several years, but it's even more so with Kirk Cousins, because you definitely have a team that, by all intents and purposes, by every betting outlet and everything, is the favorite to win the NFC South. But are they good enough, especially with the holes that we've talked about on the defensive side of the ball, to compete for a Super Bowl? And will they be able to fill those needs in the draft if they just stand pat? Or should they really be looking? But if you're picking at 8 and you're trying to maximize the window, that's probably what you should do. Take the best player and try to maximize this Kirk Cousins window. But you do have 2 years of a window to think about. And if you get an extra first rounder next year, who knows how Dallas is going to be? Maybe they miss the playoffs and you get a top 15 pick next year. That's a huge get. Plus, you're getting an extra second rounder. Plus, it's not like you're totally without a first round pick. You get the 24th pick in the draft. This is similar. This isn't far off. It's a little less, but it's not far off from the Julio Jones trade that the Falcons, and that could be what Dallas is looking for. Obviously, they're probably looking for a left tackle more than a wide receiver, but this is a jump. The Falcons went from 27 to 6, and they gave up multiple first rounders, multiple second rounders, then 3rd and 4th. So it's a little bit smaller of a jump, but I think this is a reasonable expectation, especially given the blue chip prospects that are going to fall down the board because of that run on quarterbacks. You could have the top left tackle. You might have one of the top 3 wide receivers that everyone thinks is going to be a wide receiver 1. So it's a big jump, but I think in the long term, it's something I do think it really does feel, and I've said it several times, that this could be the one that they find. We say this every year. We're always like, trade back for more picks, because we have a lot of holes. We've had a lot of holes for years. This feels like one where it makes a lot of sense considering the Falcons' biggest holes and the top defensive prospects and the quarterback and wide receiver and left tackle needy teams.
Yeah, you have to have a balancing act as a GM. Like you can't sacrifice the present for the future and vice versa. It's a balancing act. You sign Kirk Cousins, you want to go all in, but you don't want to go all in to the point of like, we're sacrificing 2 years down the road, just 2 years. It's one thing to sacrifice, 5 years down the road or something like that. But I think, it's a balancing act for Terry Fontenot. And I think that if you do trade back, you're really, you're still in attempting to maximize that Kirk Cousins window. You have 2 first-round picks the following year. You could package those and move up and get into the top 10. Hopefully we're outside of the top 10 picking with our own pick.
Don't guarantee that.
Yeah, but honestly. And so then you get back into that blue chip caliber prospect and whoever that might be in the 2025 class. So I think in terms of options, the Falcons have to consider everything on the table. And I think the most important thing is maximizing value, whether it's in 2024 or 2025, because in terms of Kirk Cousins' window, it could be 2 years, it could be 4 years. So that 2025 first round pick could still be an impact player for you in 2025, of course, in 2026 and in 2027.
Yeah, I mean, Alex Anthopoulos talks about it all the time when it comes to the Braves, because, I mean, even if you look at the Braves roster right now without Spencer Strider, like, yes, they could very well use another frontline starter, but do you push all your chips in, because the Braves have done it similarly with Matt Olson and Sean Murphy? Do you push even more to try to go for it this year, or do you want to keep maximizing this window for 7, 8, 9, 10 years? And Alex Anthopoulos constantly says, hey, we have a chance to win this year. Let's try to win with what we've got, and we're going to maximize this window for the next decade and try to win all those years too. You got to think about it from a same perspective from the NFL. Now, the NFL is a little more short-sighted. It's not, you're not going to be thinking 10 years, 8 years down the road, because half these players will be out of the league. Probably more than half will be out of the league. But still, 1, 2 years down the road, you do have a 4-year window. If everything goes well, it is a 4-year window with Kirk Cousins. You're hoping he's going to be the guy for 4 years, not just 2. So, yeah, I mean, I agree. Listen, if that trade came, by my desk, I'm signing off. I'm signing off 10 times out of 10. And I love Malik Neighbors and I love Roman Dunze. And I think they could be star receivers in Atlanta and really push that. But I think you got to think about the future of this defense, the future of this team, and building out this roster even more moving forward before you really can start thinking about, hey, we're pushing it all in, making a Von Miller type trade to win a Super Bowl. And maybe that's something they do next year with that extra first round pick or something like that.
Accumulating more draft picks is never a bad thing in most cases. And like I said, and like you kind of explained with the Braves thing, it's a balancing act. We're trying to win a Super Bowl this year, but it's not at the cost of next year completely, where you're completely ruining your chances next year. You see teams do it all the time. I mean, the Saints did it from 2017 to 2018 to 2019 to 2020 until Drew Brees was gone. I mean, they constantly kept going in, and now you're seeing they still haven't necessarily, fully embraced the rebuild, especially with Derek Carr. And this is where they are. They're on the hamster wheel. They're not good enough to actually win a Super Bowl, but they're not bad enough to kind of get a franchise-altering draft pick. And if you're the Falcons, you want to stay off of that hamster wheel. You want to maximize your chances in the present, but not at the cost of the future too much. Again, you went out and got Kirk Cousins. You signaled to the league. You think you're contenders. You have to go for it to a certain degree. But if you're Terry Fontenot, I think that you can't just think about He's not just thinking about 2024. He's thinking about 2025. And like you said, they gave him a 4-year deal. We don't want to deal in absolutes. You prepare for the worst and hope for the best. The best is Kirk Cousins is here for 4 years.
Yeah, I mean, listen, and let's be real. The Falcons have not gone all in. I mean, the Falcons haven't restructured pretty much any of their contracts. They didn't go out there and chase a star pass rusher, which were readily available, whether it was Brian Burns, Montez Sweat, Hassan Reddick, the numerous guys. They didn't really push for a pass rusher and free agency, at least to our knowledge. So while the Falcons have kind of put one foot in the door of trying to be contenders, they still are thinking about the future, because if they were going all in, they would have made one of those moves, regardless if they thought it was the proper
You
value.
want to see all in, look at the Jets. The Jets are doing things that is all in. They had the Keenan Allen. the Cowboys left tackle. I mean,
Tyron Smith,
they are going all in. That's what all in looks like. And if they don't win a Super Bowl, there will be hell to pay in terms of their roster, salary cap, and everything like that, because they still got Sauce Gardner to pay, Garrett Wilson to pay. They got guys they got to pay, and they're depending on a lot of ifs and buts.
Yeah, but they're also in a different position, the Falcons. They have a filled-out defense with stars. They need offensive line help. They have one of the best. They have a Hall of Fame, first ballot Hall of Famer quarterback in Aaron Rodgers nearing the end of his career, which any year at this point could be his last best year if it hasn't already happened. And so they are in a much different position where they went fully all in going after Aaron Rodgers, and they don't have a choice. They have to put all their chips in or else they're screwed. The Falcons aren't quite there yet, even though they did go out there and get Kirk Cousins. But in a year, maybe this time next year,
it's a completely different conversation.
We could be having a totally different conversation than the one that we're having right now. But I do think this is an intriguing scenario from Alex K over there at Bleacher Report.